That's what a professional soccer player earns in Kenya.
A month or a week or a match?
A month.
Oof, okay.
A month.
As the development program for their 15s. Sevens is their feeder for their 15s.
Yes.
So their sevens is not a small program at Ilianza Juicy guys, easy. No, Argentina they're not many in rugby. That's
We talked a lot of rugby last week. Last week we had an episode that was rugby from the beginning to the end. And
it was rugby centric.
Yes.
With who? What's his name again?
Konye. With a Nairobi West accent.
Yes.
Konye.
That's a bullshit accent. The proper accent. Konye, okay? That was number 4 on the list.
Okay.
Konye, okay?
Sawa. Now, Hila, before we get started, your conversation here, Konye, last week, like any nugget you picked up. I know you're a rugby insider. Is there anything you picked up? Because this was a fan side conversation, which sometimes maybe the officials are on the official side. Is there anything that you picked up from the fan side conversation? Hila?
Well, I can tell you for a fact I was very impressed by his understanding of what is happening in country. Most of the guys in Kenya, they say, Jama, they do not know what they're talking about, they don't understand. But maybe just to add on to, some of the things that you've mentioned, and I think we've had this discussion with a couple of Kenyans in the last 3 weeks that have been around. There's been a lot of emphasis on the participation and the quality of our sevens team, and people had actually lost sight of the fact that there's an entire system that needs to be looked into play. The one thing that I can say I feel very confident about the current runnings at the Kenya Rugby Union is that they've taken a step back, and I think it was important to get the relegation so that it could, inspire some level of thought in our system. What has actually happened in the last 12 odd months, the setup of structures, other than the under 20 team that won the Africa Rugby Championship and they'll be traveling to Scotland in early July to play in the Junior World Trophy, they've been able to go around and set up feeder systems at under 18, under 15, and under 13, such that we then start focusing on not only just being competitive, but quality, and being able to teach some of these particular softer skills much earlier. Biko Adema and Paul Odera. I think Paul Odera is managing the under 18 team. He's the immediate former under 20 coach. Biko Adema is managing the under 15s. And then they've got structures, all being managed by what they're calling the high performance coach, Jerome Parvota, who used to be at Western Province. So he basically says that you've got to be able to have a rugby DNA. One of the things that, of course, has been very, very dicey is the fact that we've also never had sponsorship. And, we've already spoken about the environment back home. And, companies are not necessarily having it on a good scale. Anytime you bring in a tax, it's actually a cost to the company, and fewer companies are now, seeding off marketing sponsorship opportunities into sports, because it's now being perceived as a cost as opposed to something that can be beneficial. So having the structures in and being able to remain competitive at sevens, at age grade, at 15 aside, in my opinion, at some point in time, will then open up opportunities for some of these youngsters to then get a chance to ply their trade in places like France, places like Japan, where you'd actually get a decent pay as a rugby player. Because the reality is that for the longest time, there was this drive to ensure that you could end up having Kenya being a pro rugby playing station. But the reality is that even a person who plays for one of the bigger soccer teams in Kenya, like Gor Mahia, or a bigger team like AFC Leopards, would only get paid 20 or 30,000 shillings. And this is a sport where, it's a no-brainer. You go around and seek for sponsorship, be given 50 million, but that's still not enough.
Wait,
so I think the mindset is changing.
Shillings. Wait,
where people are realizing.
Pause up with 20,000 shillings.
Yes, that's what a professional soccer player earns in Kenya.
A month or a week or a match?
A month.
Oof, okay.
A month.
That is new information to me.
When you hear that there's a new Burundian striker who has been brought in to play for Gor Mahia or Nigerian at AFC Leopards, they'll only get maybe 40K. So what we term as being professional is not necessarily as professional as it should be. So yeah, I'm glad that there's systems that are allowing us to then go around and showcase our talent at the highest level. I'm very excited at the fact that Chippo are going to Scotland for the Junior World Rugby Trophy. I'd like to hope that some of these youngsters could potentially get rugby scholarships and get a chance to further their careers. But I think now the mindset locally is try and ensure that you can generate as much quality as possible, remain competitive as high and as best as you can, because the only opportunities that will be life-changing for these fellows is that they probably go and get some of these particular scholarships to further their careers and whatnot. And the reality is that even when you compare rugby and soccer, and you look at the highest paid rugby player of all time, they earn a pittance compared to what soccer guys earn. So the next is also tell them, start planning for your life after rugby. Are you going to get into coaching? Do you want to get into a professional sort of bit? Because even on a global perspective, it's a sport that we're very passionate about. But we've got to also be very real. You'll never get paid as much as a golfer or as an athlete if you're playing rugby, or as much as a Premier League soccer player. But if you're competitive enough, other opportunities will pop up. You'll play in international high octane tournaments, and you'll get a chance at knocking on some doors and making some change in your life.
This is quite interesting, and that's the reason why we like talking to people who have these fresh and unique perspectives now. Because I remember last year when we were talking to you last year, it was a very sad moment. It was just moments after we had been relegated. And I remember how you were describing how overdrafts met with money being taken out of accounts and that being the reason why some players were not getting paid, because there was an issue of players playing, like trying to block the sponsor's name.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that were going on.
Brouhaha.
Yeah, and I think the relegation, of course, kind of gave people a chance to sit back, and it gave like the way we say it in the Lenana school, to sieve the trash, and the good stuff came up, which was actually, I think, a very good thing indeed. What prospects are you seeing now? We have the Olympics game coming up. I think the women's team is going for a qualification tournament. I really hope the women's team manages to sip through and qualify. They were one game away from playing in the qualifying tournament in Madrid. But what prospects are you seeing? We have, of course, the men's Olympics coming up, and then of course we have the circuit that's gonna start in December. Well, what's your projection for this coming season here?
So I'll start with the ladies. It was very inspiring and very exciting to see that Grace Okulu and Janet Okello, who pretty much did not play for the Lionesses entire season because they were committed playing club rugby in Japan, are back in the team. Grace Okulu is a monstrous player at number 10. She can hit harder than a truck. Janet Okello has got wheels for days, I think that was one aspect that we missed out on the Lionesses. I get the feeling that if we had those two players in Poland, we would have actually been able to qualify for the repechage, but we are on the front of coulda, shoulda, woulda, and we can only go around and dictate what we can play on ahead. It'll be interesting to see just how they'll be able to inspire the team ahead of the repechage. If you had to ask me who starts as fan favorites in that repechage tournament, it would definitely be China. I mean, China were imperious. China have actually not lost a game the entire season, not in any of the Challenger Trophy series, not even at the Madrid tournament. China have not lost a single game. And then having a tactician like Gordon Tidgens, a former New Zealand Sevens coach, at the helm, I would say if we can basically put in our best foot forward, be able to blend in Janet Okello and Grace in well, we may have a chance onto them. But it's good to actually see the girls back in. I go back on to just what I'd also mentioned to give you then an understanding of what I would then expect. The similar sort of structure that has been done when I talked about under 20, under 18, and under 15 has unfortunately only been done for the male code. I think a similar sort of structure needs to also be set out for the women's code so that there's level of competitiveness. It would be good to get a couple more girls going into Japan to play so that, we can also go out and get that level of confidence and the ability to compete at the highest level being nurtured down. What do I actually anticipate for the Olympics? I am a dreamer. I am praying for a podium finish. What am I actually hoping for the next season? I may be pushing it a bit too hard, but I remember the last time the Kenya Sevens team won a tournament in Singapore in 2016, just what that did for the sport in the country. I would like to hope that once the series starts in Dubai and ends next year in June, that we can at least win one tournament. I think there's a very hungry group of individuals who are in there. The thing that makes them dangerous is they're a known commodity.
Yes.
And when you're actually having very hungry, unknown players, then you can start dreaming. I would like to believe that they have it within themselves to win a tournament. Don't ask me why. Maybe I'm a dreamer, but I actually fancy that we might win one tournament next year.
Actually, Hila, that's one thing that I believe it's going to happen, because if you look at this team, like definitely, let's go back to our best team that we ever had, the team that had the big three, the team that had Gibu, Tol, and
Kolo.
Gibu, Tol, and Kolo alikuwa mtoto bado, Gibu, Tol, and Lavin. When he had those three, and they were the core of that team, that was one team that we used to know that between Lavin's boot and Gibu and Tol's height and strides, we could beat anybody in any given day. And that was the team that reached the semi-finals of the World Cup, and that was the team that went and won in Singapore. Now the thing is, after that, people came and learned how Kenyans play. Friday came in and Friday backed us up and taught us to play using pace, using power. They have pace, but taught us power. And that Kenyan team used to outfoul every team. You try to go in for a tackle, they lift you up, they hold you, they get the ball, they go, they charge you. People learned how to play against us in that team. This new team, this one right now that we have, has everything. They can beat you from the boot, they cannot run you, they cannot pace you. They cannot. They have power to go toe to toe with anybody if it comes to power. The basics of rugby are there. They're young and they're learning and they're going to improve. And I totally agree with Hila. Like, if this team continues playing through the series, a whole continuous series, I see us winning one series, but then I see us continuously being among the contenders of the in the circuit in the coming years. If we maintain this team and with the same development process is kept from the age groups coming up, we have that conveyor belt of players who can come in and replace. And when somebody has to do live, somebody is injured, you have a player who just comes in and integrates easily. So for me, I see this. And Ali, I told you last time, relegation is a blessing.
Yes,
relegation
I agree with
really is a blessing.
I agree with you. Like I was in my emotions after that relegation, because I was looking at countries like Portugal. They got relegated in 2015. Nilianza kufanya verifiable research. Portugal got relegated in 2015. They've never come back up. So I think, like I started having these nightmare scenarios in my mind. Like, what if, is this the end of, might this be the end of Kenyan rugby? Like Spain also at some point got relegated. I think it took them like 4 years to come back. Like it's sometimes very difficult to get relegated and then just to get promoted the following season. So, and of course, the way when we got relegated, the structures were falling apart. So I was just trying to think, like, what miracle could make us get back up there?
Because also me, like, when I would look at it, I would look at a team like Argentina. And I'm like, these guys just came from nowhere and are just dominating.
But Argentina has been...
Argentina didn't come from nowhere.
No, when I say come from nowhere, like, let's agree. Like, it's not that they were just there.
No, Argentina.
They just came up.
Boss.
Okay.
Argentina.
One mic. Argentina is a big rugby team.
Now they are. No. Now they are. Not even 15s. I'm talking about 7s.
Not now. No. Argentina si team ya juzi. You can ask. He has played rugby more than me, and he will tell you. Argentina si team ya juzi.
Argentina's team ya juzi.
Okay.
The only thing we can say is that now they started dominating to the point where they are on top of the table. Like with this new format, I don't know. The winner now is France, but Argentina, like they got to a point where but they've always been, like a top 4 team in the circuit for a very, very long time. In the
For,
seventh circuit.
for Argentina to be considered to be added to the Southern Hemisphere so that they can play the Super Series, that is not a small country in rugby.
No,
they're not. I'm talking about 15s. I'm talking about sevens. Not
even
15s.
sevens.
Sevens.
boss.
For these countries, they use sevens as their development program for their 15s. Sevens is their feeder for their 15s.
Yes.
So their sevens is not a small program at Ilianza Juicy guys. Easy. No, Argentina they're not many in rugby. That's
Hapa
no,
Ben Diong anasema we don't have structures and systems to be professional Kenyan sports. Hila is right. We have to expose our talented players to the world, then get them to get the best opportunities. Benny says Grace is only like 22 years. She graduated during the pandemic. So happy to see her play in Japan. Then another interesting point that Washeke brings up, saying because I know many diaspora folks who are not aware that they may have inherited property from their parents that could be impacted. So that's another very important thing.
Yeah, about the land rates and and go back home, do the research, find out, catch up.
99-year end.
Yeah, and then Upper Benin and Uliza, how do you really feel, Ali, now that we put Canada on tier 2? You know, when when during that tournament, man, ikitu yani, like I was getting like some serious butterflies yani during that time, because I was like, do we want to play Canada, or it would have felt nice to put out Canada in the tournament because wao ndo walitutoa, but anyway
it so happened.
But walitolewa, so now we're gonna have a tournament in Vancouver, and I'm curious how the tournament is gonna be without Canada playing. Of course, we have a series in places like Hong Kong and Singapore, where you don't have the host country play.
For years they haven't been.
Yeah, for years, and people
but don't
still
they
go.
feel like a
No.
You still feel like you're part of everything because you're hosting. These are your guests. You're
But
hosting.
the good thing about
Go ahead.
the good thing about hosting these tournaments is that, like, I'll give you an example of Dubai. Dubai doesn't have a team, right?
Yeah.
But then the thing was, us CC clubs in tunacheza huko, like, we would be like, all the clubs would participate in a club competition. So the players that are there, Dubai couldn't produce a team, so the team ilikuwa GCC. That was Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar. Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, and which other country? Bahrain. Because na form team moja. So that team is not good enough to be able to play in the series competition. So what they did was, like, there was a lot of club competition in between local. The way Vegas used to do it. Vegas, there was that much of
ongoing
local
tournament.
Yeah, the local tournament.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's the same thing that just what Canada is gonna do. Like, they're gonna have a lot of those local teams, local people. So there's still going to be a local presence around, because the tickets are going to be the same. So there will not be a lack of funds the way they went to another region where there's not much of a local competition. Kumekuwa na shida. Let's say, for example, if this tournament was in Kenya was not playing, watu wangenda jioni kwenda kudunda. Watu wangenda kwa rugby. So like, the tournament is still gonna be. What I'm saying is the tournament is gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. But again, it's kind of weird for the host not participating. It's kind of maybe, but then these days sevens doesn't have that invitational side.
Yeah,
these days it's a circuit.
Yeah,
couldn't invitational side. So so it's going to be dependent on the local clubs, the local tournaments. That's what they're going to use to make sure that the local fans come around.
okay. Aya, sawa.